This video is brought to you by America First Insight. Help support the growing conservative movement by becoming a member today. And if you want to support this channel, you can also use the code REAL when becoming a member. Thank you and enjoy the video. As everybody probably knows, the Democrat Party right now is in a complete panic, as redistricting is really killing their chances for next year, whether it's places like Texas, Missouri, North Carolina, more than likely Ohio, and even potentially places like Indiana and Florida. They're going to redraw their maps, or at this point have redrawn, and doing the basic math, it becomes apparent that the Republican Party, they could potentially expand their majority next year. Not just keep the majority, but expand it. Just for the simple fact that they are redrawing the maps in these very Republican states. And the Democrat Party, they're slowly beginning to really realize this is a really bad situation they're in. So in the last couple of days, we've been getting more and more reports out of places like Maryland, Illinois, these very Democrat states, and they're saying they want to redraw their maps now because they're beginning to realize the map for next year is looking bad. And we've gone over this many times before, but for those that don't know, based on the current estimates right now, Republicans are expected to gain at least 12 congressional seats from redistricting. That's 2 out of Ohio, 1 out of Indiana, 1 out of North Carolina, and you get the point. Now, of course, some of these states we don't know for sure, like Indiana, there is some reports circulating that they may not actually redraw, but the more you look at it, it sounds like they will, and in fact, there's a good chance they actually go for a 9-0 map. But we don't know for sure, but it does sound like at the bare minimum, we're getting 1 out of Indiana. Same with Ohio. There's a chance they go and take out 3 Democrats, but more than likely, it's only going to be 2 as of now. That's the most likely scenario. We don't know for sure. And there is a big question mark related to Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. We've gone over this many times before, but for those that don't know, it's basically Democrats get free seats out of places like Louisiana, Alabama, these very Republican states in the South. But we don't know for sure how the Supreme Court's going to rule on that. They may not even rule on it at all, so we don't know. But either way, you do the math. Republicans, when you factor in redistricting and the current safe to likely seats, Republicans start at 214, okay? 214 in the House right now. Democrats, meanwhile, they start at 182. So Republicans, they have to win just 4 seats to get a majority. That's it. And in fact, there's a couple seats here that would be Republican, places like Pennsylvania first with Fitzpatrick. So really, Republicans are like 215. They got to win 3 seats out of like 20 or whatever to get a majority. Democrats, meanwhile, even with redistricting in California, which yes, this does factor in, they're at 182. That's it. That is a massive gap. And that's why the Democrat Party, they're panicking and they are begging places like Illinois and Maryland and now Virginia to redraw their maps. And yes, they could theoretically redraw these maps. Like, for example, in Illinois, it's already gerrymandered to hell. Everybody knows this. I mean, look at this map. It's hideous. Everybody knows this is not a fair map at all. But okay, Democrats, they could theoretically gain 1. If you really push it, maybe 2, though they're admitting that they're going to really go after 1. But okay, they get 2 out of Illinois, which would be hideous. They're going to try for 1 in Maryland. And now, the newest reports are they're going to try to draw out like 3 Republicans in Maryland, right? Like, there's 3 Republicans here that will be drawn out completely. And that 1 slightly competitive seat would probably be safe. So this is the Democrat Hail Mary. They know they're in a lot of shit. They know their polling is not where it should be. So you do the math and you realize that, hey, wait a second. The Democrats, even with these maps being redrawn, which it's not a guarantee, we'll get to why in a second, but even if this does happen, Republicans would still be at 209 as a starting point, roughly. There's some districts you could argue might flip, but the point is, they basically start at 209, even with this map. And Democrats, they start at 189. So it's still a 20-seat gap between the Republican Party and Democrats, but it is a much more manageable scenario because with it theoretically being a blue wave, and yeah, these districts in the Deep South, who knows, maybe they don't redraw. Well, if you factor them in, then yeah, Democrats would be at roughly 197, which still Republicans have a slight advantage, but it's much more feasible. And there are a bunch of seats mentioned here that would probably go Democrat, like in New Jersey or whatever. So this is why Democrats, they're so desperate to redraw these maps now. Because if they don't, they know that they're screwed for next year. And that's why Illinois, Maryland, Virginia, these are the 3 states we got to watch. Well, here's the problem. And Democrats, they, I don't think, accounted for this. Because already they are running into serious issues. For starters, in Maryland, they've been trying to gerrymander Maryland again for years now. But every single time since like 2021, they've gotten embarrassed in court. And that's not going to change. So more than likely, the same thing's going to happen. They're going to try to push a gerrymander. It blows up in their face, and they keep the same map. Because the courts in Maryland, they keep siding with Republicans on this issue. Now, could that change? Maybe. So already Maryland, that's unlikely, and even then some Democrats are questioning why they would even do that, and like, is it really worth it? Are they going to really try that? We don't know. But okay, that's just one extra seat. That's whatever. Well, here's the problem for Dems, all right, on top of Maryland. Already the Illinois situation for redistricting, it looks like a disaster. Because for those that don't know, the Illinois Senate Black Caucus warned Hakeem Jeffries and other top Democrats pushing for redistricting per punch bowl. They won't back any map that dilutes the black vote in any historically black district. And their chair said, we're going to fight back. We just won't do so at the expense of our own power. Yeah. So the Illinois Legislative Black Caucus, they are in open rebellion right now. They're saying, no, we are not going to support these new maps because they're going to dilute black voters. So already, even with Illinois, which is theoretically could be 2 House seats, more than likely 1, it looks like it's going to fail there. So you already have serious doubts about Illinois redrawing. And there's some legal question marks like in Maryland, and we'll get to Virginia in a second. So you do the math, and already that's 2 of the 3 states that it's not looking good in for redistricting. And then finally you have what is the new Hail Mary, Virginia. This is the one state that Democrats in the last couple of days have been banking on, because they could actually gain 4 seats here. They could flip, or really they flip 3 seats and then they make the other one more safe Democrat. But you get the point that this is their last-ditch effort to counteract some of the redistricting, because we talked about this a bunch, but again, Democrats, they're still way down. They're still way down the seat count, but just getting Virginia to redraw, when you factor in even redistricting in Ohio, Florida, Indiana, it still is a gap, but it's not as bad because Republicans would be at 212 and Democrats would start at roughly, what is that, like 194? So yeah, it's still a gap, but it's far more manageable than being down by some crazy margin. Well, here's the problem in Virginia, okay? Because this is a process that not a lot of people understand. And in the NBC article, they actually detail how it actually works, okay? This is what it says. An amendment to Virginia's constitution requires both chambers of the legislature, where Democrats currently hold narrow majorities, to approve a measure twice, with a general slate House election in between. If Democrats are able to push a measure to eliminate the redistricting commission through before next month's election, they could vote again on a proposed amendment at their next scheduled session in January and send it to the voters without it ever needing current Republican Governor Glenn Youngkin's approval. Yeah, This is the part that no one's talking about. This is an issue why Democrats can't redraw in New York. They keep running into this problem where they can't really change the laws and all that. But in Virginia, the process is the legislator, they have to approve it twice. And I think it's a simple majority, which they have very small majorities, by the way, like 1-seat majorities in both chambers, and twice. And there is a loophole they found where they can approve it now, right before this election, so they can approve it again back in January, and that counts. So already, it's a very tough ask of the Democrats in Virginia. They have to make sure every single Democrat votes yes, which there's not a guarantee they do, because there might be some Democrats in Virginia that have the same logic as in Illinois. Like, hey, this dilutes black voters, so we're not going to do it. So, but okay, even if they're able to successfully pass this, which I have some doubts about, but okay, let's say they do, because this is the Democrat Party, whatever. It still goes to a vote. That's the part that is not going to be easy for Dems. It still goes to a vote. And the voters of Virginia, they overwhelmingly approved this commission back in like 2018 or whatever, by a landslide margin, by like 2/3 or whatever. It was a big win. But now it's like, wait, so you're going to try to overturn something that just passed a referendum like 5 years ago by a big margin in a state that's not as Democrat as, say, California. California's commission, yeah, they're probably getting rid of it, but because it's a very Democrat state, it's D+20, and even then, it might underperform Harris's margin. We don't know for sure, but you get the point. Virginia, meanwhile, it's D+5, and it's nowhere near as Democrat or liberal as, say, California is, and that's the problem. The timing is just not there for for Democrats. They need everything to go right. They need everything to go right, and they gotta rush it through the legislature ASAP, which it may not even be able to pass, and then they gotta do it again back in January, and then they needed to pass a referendum sometime next year. More than likely, it would have to be in November of next year. So it is impossible, based on my understanding of this process, for it to even pass before next November. That's the problem. Even, maybe in 2020 it will affect then, but right now, it's such an unlikely scenario, and then you gotta pass it via referendum, which it may not pass at all. So do the math. Is it possible they're able to do it? Maybe. But the Democrat Party, they're so desperate that they're trying everything they can to get some kind of House seats back. That's all they're looking for. But it's not going to be enough. And I don't think in Virginia, they're going to have enough time to pass it. So right there, their Hail Mary of Hail Marys goes down the toilet. Because just legally speaking, they can't do much. Maryland, they've been trying for years. It blows up in their face. Virginia, it's a long process. It takes a while. There is a loophole they're using to make it a little bit faster, but they still got to pass it via referendum, and then it may not even pass at all. And then Virginia Democrats, they might be against it. We don't know for sure. And then Illinois, you already got a bunch of Democrats saying no. They don't want to do this. So what do? You can't really do much anywhere else. I mean, you're going to redraw in Connecticut? It's already all Democrat seats. You can't do anything in New York. Can't do much in New Jersey. You're tapped out in California already. Can't do much in Oregon or Washington. So, what do? Nothing. That's the issue. They have already gerrymandered these states so much that the second they actually got to really go full-blown gerrymandering, they're screwed. They just don't got the numbers or seats to do any of this. Republicans, meanwhile, they are able to do this because A, they have the power in places like Ohio, Indiana, blah, blah, blah. They got the power to do so. And B, and this is a big thing no one talks about, their coalition does not rely just on urban cores. So their voters are more evenly split out. They're more evenly distributed. That's huge because they're able to redraw these maps so much and make these seats very Republican. Even in California, Democrats have a big issue where a lot of these seats, yeah, they're Democrat, but not by 35 points. They're Democrat by like 8 points. And the Republican trending areas. So that map in California might blow up in their faces in like 5 years. Places like Texas, you really don't got that. These seats are all like R plus 10, R plus 15, R plus 20. Same thing with Ohio, with Indiana, Missouri. So yeah, we'll see what happens, but if you're the Democrat Party, this was your Hail Mary. This was your final Hail Mary, which it could still happen. Let's be clear about that. They could still successfully redraw these states. But right now, I'm not seeing it. Anyways, folks, thank you so much for watching. If you guys did enjoy, smash the like button down below, subscribe, share with your friends, and of course, join the channel today. Godspeed to all of you.